Hi everyone, welcome and thanks for joining. Today I'm going to share with you some of the goodies that were announced at the recent Nintex Exchange conference if you weren't able to make it out to San Diego at the end of last month. Before we get started, I want to cover a quick little bit about who we are. Able Solutions is a consulting firm based out of Alpharetta, Georgia. And for over 2 decades, clients have trusted us to help them reduce the cost, risk, and implementation time associated with solving their most critical business, IT, and collaboration challenges. We help companies achieve powerful business improvement through document management and workflow-enabled SharePoint solutions, unique applications, technology planning and support, and a wide array of complementary IT services. Among our growing list of industry-specific solutions, we also offer pre-designed collaboration frameworks that shrink implementation time and cost. Now, as a long-standing Microsoft Gold partner focused on improving business productivity, Able Solutions now also offers services that help you better achieve IT cost control. And in addition to our partnership with Microsoft, we're also Nintex's go-to partner in the Southeast and longest-serving partner in the region, delivering Nintex software, services, and training since 2008. And who am I? My name is Nicole Presby. I'm a senior SharePoint consultant here at Able Solutions, where Nintex is one of my primary areas of expertise. As I mentioned, Able Solutions is one of Nintex's premier partners, and we've had a very close relationship for many, many years. Now, because of the work that I've been able to do here at Able, I'm also a virtual technical evangelist for Nintex, which is essentially equivalent to Microsoft's MVP program. My blog is listed there. Feel free to check it out. I typically post tips and tricks to help you on your SharePoint and Nintex journey. And then for more information about Able Solutions or Nintex, you can check out the websites listed at the bottom of this slide, follow us on Twitter, or contact us directly, and I'll be sure to share some additional contact information with you at the end of this webinar. All right, now on to the agenda for today. We'll start with just a few slides to cover a quick overview of the Nintex product suite for those who may not be familiar. And then we'll dive into our recap from the Exchange conference, including what exactly is the Exchange conference. And then we'll walk through Forms for Nintex Workflow Cloud, Forms for SharePoint and Office 365, and InText Workflow for Office 365. Now for each, we'll take a quick step back and review some of the key product feature enhancements that were recently added to the Nintex platform. And then we'll talk about future capabilities that were announced that will be coming down the pipeline over the next year. And finally, we'll be talking about 2 exciting new features coming for Nintex Mobile, as well as 1 new lens that'll be available for Nintex Hawkeye. Now, all attendees are in listen-only mode, but please feel free to use the chat windows to submit any questions that you may have, and we'll be sure to answer those at the end as time permits. All right, for those of you who may be new to Nintex, let's just quickly answer exactly what is Nintex. Nintex is a third-party tool which was originally built for SharePoint but now extends to Office 365 and the cloud, which allows users to quickly and easily automate business processes through custom workflows and forms and no-code solutions. Now, the Nintex Workflow platform is constantly expanding, so let's just walk through a quick overview of all that the Nintex Workflow platform currently has to offer. So first, we have Nintex Workflow, which allows you to build and automate those business processes quickly and easily. Nintex Forms provides a user interface to kick off those workflows with some powerful business logic built right into the data capture phase. Nintex Mobile extends workflows and forms so that users can stay connected no matter where they are and take their processes on the go. Nintex Hawkeye Workflow Analytics allows you to gain visibility to measure the scope, effectiveness, and business impact of processes automated with the Nintex platform through pre-built and customizable dashboards. Nintex App Studio extends the Nintex mobile capabilities by allowing you to easily create custom, targeted, and powerful mobile process applications. Nintex Document Generation simplifies and automates DocGen using dynamic process data. And then finally, we've got several Nintex connectors, which allow for seamless integration to other cloud-based applications that your organization may be using, essentially allowing you to create workflows without boundaries. Now, we have done previous webinars on several of these topics, and I encourage you to check those out on our YouTube channel, which is Able Solutions LLC. All right, so now let's talk about what Exchange is. So Nintex Exchange is the customer and partner conference focused on accelerating business with process automation. This year's event marked the 3rd annual conference and was held in sunny San Diego, California. This year's theme was all about ushering in the new era of intelligent process automation by automating, orchestrating, and optimizing the modern workplace. Now, over the course of 3 days, the conference included 3 stellar keynote presentations and about 40 breakout sessions. In addition, there was an Ask the Experts happy hour where customers were able to bring their questions to roundtable discussions with product managers, technical experts, and partners. And the Nintex Lab was open throughout the conference, which allowed for attendees to BYOW, or bring your own workflow, for a face-to-face consulting session with Nintex technical evangelists and support engineers. They could also give feedback to the Nintex UX team and check out the new Learning Center. Now, Able Solutions, once again, was a proud sponsor at the conference and had great discussions with customers and other partners in the partner networking zone. And of course, the welcome reception and the final night attendee party are always great to mix, mingle, and connect with Nintex staff, partners, and fellow attendees. So if you missed it this year, stay tuned to the Nintex website to find out when and where the conference will be held next year. You won't want to miss it. And whether you weren't able to attend this year or you just had to miss certain breakout sessions in order to attend others, all of the keynote and breakout session presentations are now available online. Now, with that being said, with over 40 plus hours worth of content that was covered, there's no way we could provide kind of a full recap of those many, many hours of content presented at the conference. So our goal with this 30-minute webinar is to call out the big picture items that were announced at the conference and provide very high-level overview and key roadmap items that are on their way to you. So without further ado, let's dive in. First up, Forms. Now, there are several big improvements coming down the pipeline of the Nintex Forms product for SharePoint On-Prem, Office 365, and Nintex Workflow Cloud. So let's get started with Forms for Nintex Workflow Cloud. All right, if you're not familiar with Nintex Workflow Cloud, I think it makes sense to first explain what this is. Essentially, Nintex Workflow Cloud, or NWC, is an evolution of what Nintex has learned in the business process automation space over the past decade. Nintex Workflow Cloud is a state-of-the-art cloud workflow platform that works with what you already have, whether it's structured or unstructured content to legacy systems and modern SaaS applications. Now, whether it's an anonymous web form as a start event, a highly collaborative routing and approval process, or a next-generation IoT solution, NWC empowers people closest to your lines of business to automate the processes that are your business. Now, while Nintex Workflow Cloud was released in 2016, Nintex Forms for NWC was only just released in September of 2017, and lots has been added to the product over the past 6 months. In the initial release in September 2017, we gained support for anonymous form entry and responsive design, providing the ability to custom brand and embed forms into web pages and mobile applications with a robust rules engine and a variety of new form controls, including images, headings, date times, and many others. In October, text masks were added, as well as form load rules, which essentially allow you to set default values and properties of your form, and the ability to rename variables. In addition, the action panel was enhanced to include support for Google reCAPTCHA, which helps to protect form submissions, and you can now enter a custom redirect URL for your form. In November, we got the file upload control, which allows for attachments to be captured even via drag and drop. The file upload control also allows for restriction by file type, file size, and number of files per form. And an email control automatically enforces proper email formatting. And then moving on to December, we gained the ability to easily convert between different string controls, and the Nintex team also made several improvements to existing controls. So what does the next round of evolution look like for Nintex Forms for NWC? First up, Pages. The multi-page form experience provides a tabbed user interface, allowing you to break up large forms. It is worth mentioning, it's currently possible to implement similar kind of an end user experience on SharePoint and Office 365. However, what this is going to give us is this functionality is going to provide the desired tabbed user experience as an out-of-the-box option, which is stellar. The design experience here makes it easy also to add new pages, reorder pages, remove pages, and add header text. Also, when designing the form, controls can be dragged and dropped from one tab to another very seamlessly. So a few other details about the multi-page feature. The form asynchronously loads each tab, which will further improve performance and form load time. Now, the first release will allow for non-sequential form experience, allowing you to jump around as needed. And then that sequential form experience, such as a next and previous button to guide the user logically through the form, will be in a future release. Now, as far as expected release date for this phase 1, it's very, very close, and InText is targeting April or May of this year. All right, next up, task forms. So currently, there are 2 different task actions in NWC. We've got express approval and assign a task. For task forms in NWC, the 2 task actions will be merged into a single task. And then from that single action, you have the option to specify which type of task you want to create, either express approval or form-based. Now, form-based tasks can be accessed either via the web or via the Nintex Mobile app. And the coolest thing is that these can be public tasks assigned to anyone. So this can be very, very powerful in those B2B scenarios. Now, task forms can also be populated with data from the NWC start form, as well as any other system like Salesforce, for example. And the screenshot at the bottom of the slide actually shows how we'll be able to use the new multi-page feature in combination with the task form functionality. So we can have our request details, additional information, and the approval information all available from a single form, which is something that our clients are always asking for. The expected release date for task forms for Nintex Workflow Cloud, Nintex is targeting mid this year. All right, and finally, data sources. So currently, if you want to provide a choice list to your users to select from, the options are going to be fixed within that field. New options are going to require that you update your form and you republish your workflow. The initial release of data sources is going to allow you to populate form data from a SharePoint list, but eventually you'll be able to populate from any of your connectors in Nintex Workflow Cloud, such as Salesforce, Box, and so on. So how will all this work? First, you'll set up your data source as shown in the screenshot on the left-hand side, and then you'll drag on your new lookup control onto your form, and then you'll configure that control to pull information from the defined data source into the form. And the expected release date for data sources for NWC, we are targeting mid this year as well. All right, so now let's continue the forms discussion, but we'll move on to forms for SharePoint and Office 365. So once again, let's just take a quick look back at some of the most recent feature enhancements that have been added over the past year. Early last year, we got Save and Continue and Button Redirect for 365 and SharePoint. Also for Office 365, we got support for Managed Metadata, which has already been available for SharePoint for quite some time. In August, September, responsive forms were released, as well as set field value for a single line of text only. Now, Nintex has received feedback that users want to set field values for other data types as well, and that is coming. November, December brought document set support for SharePoint and some performance updates around rules for Office 365. And then in January, February, we got attachments and repeating sections and user profile runtime functions. So once again, let's take a look at what's coming. All right, so the big story here for forms for Office 365 and SharePoint is universal forms. With universal forms, the same code base and forms engine will be used across all platforms, which will allow for more rapid innovation and consistency between the form experience and the form designers for Nintex for SharePoint on-prem, Office 365, and Nintex Workflow Cloud. This means that when a new feature or function is added to one platform, it'll appear across all platforms. So no more trying to figure out which features exist on-prem, but not on 365, and so on. The new Universal Forms Designer will bring the updated NWC look and feel, which we see here in the screenshot, to Office 365 and SharePoint on-prem. And we'll get all of the great things that either are already or will soon be available in NWC, like the multi-pages we just looked at, like the data sources we just talked about, as well as the updated rules engine that already exists in NWC, which includes form load rules, as well as the runtime rules that we're used to, and better performance overall. And then this tabbed interface that we see here allows us to easily move between configuration options such as designing, previewing, building rules, applying styles, managing data sources, and more. All right, so what else about universal forms? We'll also be able to resize controls through clicks, and will no longer be limited and restricted to the 4-column layout that the current responsive form designer adheres to, which is stellar. And maybe best of all, migrating between platforms will be a breeze because the Forms product for all platforms will share the same code base. So we'll be able to export a form from on-prem and seamlessly import it into Office 365 or NWC and so on, which is great. And the expected release date for this, Nintex is targeting universal forms to be released by the second half of this year, which is awesome. Okay, so now let's switch gears a little bit away from all of the advancements coming for Nintex Forms, and let's talk about Nintex Workflow for Office 365. So Nintex released a lot for Nintex Workflow for Office 365 over the past year, and I should mention that not nearly all are listed here. This is just a sampling. They've basically had 4 key themes in mind while adding features and functionality to the Nintex for Office 365 product over the past 6 to 12 months, and they continue to focus on these driving factors going forward. First of all, design easier. So this is all around making the design process as easy as possible so that you can build workflows quickly, including improving the workflow design experience and accelerating the time to value. Second of all, robust governance. So this focuses on finding the right balance between user empowerment and enterprise needs to provide guardrails and keep control over what's being deployed across the 365 platform. Sophisticated scenarios. So this is basically ensuring that we have the right building blocks to be able to automate the complex processes that our businesses run on. And then reuse and extend. So basically Nintex just wants to make Nintex Workflow for Office 365 as easy to reuse and extend as the current on-prem product is. Now, while all of these features are powerful in their own way, there are a few that have gotten the biggest buzz since being added to the 365 product that I wanted to just quickly highlight. First of all, Connection Manager. So again, the next 3 features I'm going to talk about real quickly are already available in your Office 365 product. So go check them out if you're interested. Connection Manager resolves the issue of having to put your username and password directly into many workflow actions. This gives you the ability to create either shared connections, which allow you to create a connection and then share it across the entire site collection. You can also restrict it by site or individual user. Or you can create personal connections, which are mine only and available to me across the entire tenant. Secondly, scheduled workflows. So this is going to allow you to configure workflows to start at a specific date and time and then automatically run again on a specified schedule. Now, this is already a feature that's available for the on-prem product, but it's great to be added to the 365 offering. Typical examples of when scheduled workflows are useful is for custom reminders or document review cycles. So for example, all documents in a document library must be reviewed quarterly. This is where this is helpful. And lastly, conditional start. So this is going to allow me to have 2 or more different workflows and kick off each workflow based on some data that's coming in through the item at runtime. So for example, if the budget for a project request is over or under a certain threshold, you can kick off 2 different processes to handle the request accordingly. And again, the conditional start is a feature that's already available in the on-prem product, but it's awesome that they've brought that in. It's bringing us closer to parity for the 365 offering. Okay, so just as we've done with the previous products, let's quickly take a look at what's coming down the pipeline for Nintex Workflow for Office 365. First up, component workflows. So this is going to allow you to build a workflow and then call that workflow from various places, including from Office 365 across your entire tenant, NWC, or via an external API. Now, this is essentially the equivalent to UDAs that we've got on-prem. And just like with UDAs, one of the main scenarios where component workflows will be useful is with a complex piece of logic. So something where business users may never be able to figure out how to design that piece for themselves. So one of your more advanced workflow designer could build out that bit of logic, wrap it up into a component workflow, and then that other workflow designers can now leverage. Now, one of the key features of component workflows is that you'll be able to easily pass variables into the component workflow and also get variables out. So there is a new output variable type, which is basically the converse of the initiation variable type that we already have in 365. And then once you've created your component workflows, there will be a new action called Call Component Workflow, where all of your component workflows will be available for selection, and then all of the inputs and outputs are automatically available for you to configure. It works very closely to the way that UDAs work on-prem now. And our expected release date for this guy is very close. They're actually targeting within the next few months, so be on the lookout for that very soon. All right. And then the other new feature that I want to call out today around Nintex Workflow for Office 365 is the extensions framework. So the extension framework already exists in NWC and basically allows you to create your own custom connectors for the action toolbox. So for example, if you want to build workflows that connect with Teams or Planner and Nintex doesn't have an action for that yet, then you can create one and deploy it to your toolbox. Or likewise, if you want to integrate, let's say, with like an internal proprietary system, like an accounting system that your organization uses, this will allow you to build actions that you can load into your toolbox and use over and over. So how exactly does it work? Essentially, you start off with an API. Either there's public ones or you can build your own. You then take a little piece of code that explains what the API needs to look like. And then with Nintex extensions, you provide an icon, tell it what type of security it needs, and then the action can be leveraged in your toolbox. Now, of course, this slide is extremely oversimplifying things, but that's essentially the gist of how the extension framework allows you to build out these custom connectors. All right. Now let's talk about what's coming from the Nintex Mobile front, because there are a couple of very cool innovations that are in the works. First of all, push notifications will be added to the Nintex Mobile app experience. Push notifications are fairly self-explanatory, and they'll work just like other push notifications on our mobile devices. So for example, notifying us when work is coming up for us, notifying me when something has been done that affects me, such as my leave request was approved. In addition, Nintex will be adding views into the app to group upcoming and incomplete tasks by due date so that you can easily see which items are almost due, past due, due today, and so on. Now, the expected release dates for these are going to vary. It's dependent on task forms being available across all platforms. As of right now, they're tentatively targeting NWC first to be available in early April. Office 365 would be targeted mid this year, and then on-prem will be last, and it'll be toward the end of this year to get this push notification feature available in the mobile app. All right, so this is very cool. So Nintex is also diving into natural language processing as a component to this assistant technology that they're looking into. Essentially, natural language processing is teaching a computer how to converse with a human in a more conversational manner. So one example of the way that this may manifest from an Nintex perspective is having a conversation with a bot to help guide users through a workflow or through a form. So we see a couple of examples up there of kind of what this may look like. Now, currently Nintex is looking at adding this in as part of the Forms Designer, where you'll be able to, quote, train your assistant to recognize and translate phrases into form selections and then submit your form and kick off your process. Now, I believe Nintex is still in the fairly early stages of investigating this functionality, so I don't have an expected release date for this feature just yet. All right, and then the last topic that I want to touch on today is Nintex Hawkeye. Now, with Nintex Hawkeye, we already had two lenses available to us. The usage lens, which provides an aggregate view of all data across your environment, and the process intelligence lens, which allows you to instrument, analyze, optimize a particular process automated with the Nintex Workflow platform. The new lens that's being added to Nintex Hawkeye is the inventory lens. Essentially, the inventory lens will help you understand where your assets are located and derive actionable insight to help you run your company more effectively. Now, some of the questions that the inventory lens may help to answer: how many workflows you have running and which locations those workflows are running in, how many have been completed, how many are still running, how many have errored, and then also just to help you understand how your solutions have been built out. Are there improvements that could be made, etc.? All right, so with that, we have reached the end of our content for today. I thank you so much for joining. I know it was kind of a very quick, high-level whirlwind. I wanted to cover lots of different things. Hopefully you've seen some great new features that'll be coming your way soon. Now, I do encourage you to go to the Nintex Exchange website, which is shown at the top of this slide, and then click on the link to view sessions on demand. The sessions that I listed here will give you more deep dive information about anything you learned about today. So if you want to dive in and hear it from the experts about kind of what the bot functionality looks like or what's coming from a forms perspective, I encourage you to go check out the full 60-minute sessions on each of these. And as always, please feel free to reach out to us, contact us if you have further questions or if we can help you with any of your SharePoint or Nintex projects. So with that, we've got just a few minutes left, and so now let's take a few questions. Okay, and it looks like the questions that are coming in are mostly surrounding universal forms and the forms updates. So first of all, are classic forms going away? So no, classic forms are there to stay for the time being. So if you're familiar, as I mentioned, responsive forms were launched as an alternative to the kind of classic form experience that we're all used to. And so currently now, on the newer builds of 2013, 2016, or Office 365, when you go to build a new Nintex form, you have the option to create a classic form or a responsive form, and that will stay the same for the time being. And then the next question kind of rolls into that. So with the addition of universal forms, does that mean that we'll now have 3 options to pick from? No. So my understanding is that universal is going to replace the responsive form option. So once universal releases, then you'll have the option to still create your classic forms or create a universal form. And I also understand that if you have existing responsive forms, that they won't break when universal forms is released, but you'll actually have the option to upgrade them to the new user experience if you want to, which is great that they're giving us that capability. Okay, so another question from an on-prem perspective. So if we're using universal forms in an on-prem environment, is the code base that we're launching out to going to be in the cloud? So no, again, my understanding, it's the same code base that all 3 platforms are going to utilize, but you'll reference them. If you're on-prem, you'll stay on-prem, and the code base will be referenced on-prem. So no, security concerns there. All right. So I think that's it. We've got 1 more minute. I don't see any other questions. We'll give it just another minute. One quick thing that I'd like to mention. So I encourage you also to check out ablesolutions.com for details on our 3-day Nintex training classes. So we offer 3-day in-depth Nintex training classes for both SharePoint on-prem and Office 365. And we've got dates for this year, for 2018, up on our website, ablesolutions.com. If you're interested, if you need some training, then check it out and reach out to us. And with that, I don't see any other questions coming in. So we will wrap up. And once again, I thank you all, and I hope that this was exciting and interesting. It is an exciting time to be working with Nintex. So we'll just wait and see what comes next. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.